My boyfriend has been throwing away the lunches I cooked for him for 1.5 years. I feel humiliated, embarrassed, and slightly upset. What do I do about that? Pre-COVID, my boyfriend worked about an hour away from home. I always woke up at 5:30 a.m. so that I could pack him a fresh lunch before he left at 6:10 a.m. I packed for him because he was having some rough time at work, and I knew he didn't get along with a lot of people there. I did this 6 times a week for 1.5 years. Now, near COVID, he got promoted, and a month-ish after that, work went online, so I didn't have to pack for him. Recently, I've become friends with one of the gals at the office, and we call each other every now and then. During our conversation, Christmas call, yesterday, I found out something shocking. My boyfriend had been eating work lunch the job provides, instead of my lunches. I asked her how long he had been eating in the job cafeteria, and she told me from his card logs, he's been eating there every day for 1.5 years. She said that the card provided lunch, and when he got lunch, it would notify her machine, and there has been notifications every day for the entire time I've packed for him. Edit, FYI, I didn't ask for her to snoop on the logs. I didn't even know that she had the logs. It was just a natural flow in the conversation to ask, how long was he doing that? After she told me, he's been doing it for a while. When I said, for me, I meant she did it because she was invested in the situation, and she said, I looked it up so that you can know, but not because I told her to. I got off the call fuming. I cooked at 5:30, 6 days a week for him, and he threw it away. Then, my rage turned to humiliation or something. I don't know. I felt so embarrassed that he hated my food so much that he would eat work lunch instead. Now I feel betrayed because he could have been honest, but he wasn't. He would always bring his empty lunch bag back home and tell me XYZ was pretty good and stuff like that. But I know that he has never eaten my food before. My friend said that there was no area to eat aside from the cafe and that he never brought food there. I feel like shit. I prided myself in being a good girlfriend and cooking for him, but now I know that that meant nothing. What do I do? In the comments, Noah47 says, what the hell? So he couldn't tell you that he doesn't want your lunch? The hell's wrong with him? Absolutely right to be angry. OP says, I know. My anger isn't from him liking my lunches, which, he can totally just tell me, but from not telling me anything. I'm wondering if there's something wrong with me which made him not want to tell me. From his card logs? So you got her to look up his info during your Christmas call, or she just already knew that info, which seems weird for a human to just know. Just wondering how this came to be. I would ask him whether he's really been eating them. Maybe there are factors that you don't know about, or yes, maybe he was afraid to tell you. That sucks, especially with all the work you did. Sometimes people think the stupid things matter and ignore the important parts, thinking they're doing a nice thing. I think talking to him about it before getting wrapped up in hypotheticals is the best course here. OP says she's the secretary/office manager, and she makes sure that no one uses the cards for something they're not supposed to. I think she kept her work phone, which had a record of everything, and she kinda snooped in it for me. Yup. I'm going to wait until he's not busy and then confront him about it. Until then, I'm just going to be slightly paranoid. I'll update his response. She could be fired for that. Also, did he ever ask you to make his lunch for him every day, or did you just do it? It seems like he was afraid to tell you the truth about a fairly simple thing, and based on your reaction, I'm understanding that a bit. Even though he's 3 years older than you and should have been more mature about confronting you, if he never even asked you to do it to begin with, I could see that that's a little awkward. Also, that you're so close to his colleagues that you're video chatting is a bit more than I'd be comfortable with, but that's just me. OP says he complained a lot about having to eat with people he hated, so I just started making food for him. But also, I chose to make food for him. Also, I didn't ask for her to snoop on his logs. I asked her since she seemed like she knew, and she chose to tell me the logs on her work phone. I didn't ask her to check up on anything, but she told me. I don't think he's too uncomfortable about me knowing his work friend, because he would sometimes pitch in our conversation or bring down some gifts that they would give me, but who knows? Someone says maybe he's eating 2 lunches? Not really a big guy, but he's not skinny. He has a healthy appetite, but I think it's humanly impossible to eat the whole last lunch, which is pretty filling, right after breakfast, and me too. I'm bamboozled/mad boozled. In this comment containing what OP makes, he rides the subway, and it's prohibited from eating on the subway. Also, I had a hard time imagining him eating on the commute, my soups and pastas, and eating so much right after breakfast, which I make sure is filling. Kinda makes it hard for me to believe that he is eating second breakfast if he's not allowed to eat on the subway during COVID, and he's already very full from breakfast. I would love to get an explanation from him because maybe he's sneaking it in somewhere else throughout the day if he is really eating it. But then, I don't know, the laws of thermodynamics here would kind of say he'd start packing on the pounds if he were ingesting all of this food throughout the day, because that's a lot more than whatever your maintenance calories would be. A year and a half of eating at such a caloric surplus, you would see a weight difference, especially if he's not hitting the gym. So I'm gonna say it's likely that he's lying to your face about eating your food, and he is just chucking it out, and that's hugely disrespectful to you. That is genuinely a relationship-breaking thing as well, because it shows that he doesn't have any respect for you. If he can't be honest with you about this, what else will he choose not to be honest about? I couldn't trust someone that lied to me for this long. I genuinely think this is relationship breaking, and you should question being with someone like this. And now, onto the update. He did throw away his lunch. Yes, the entire time. He did it because he had to fit in, and he ate with the other co-workers, who ate the cafeteria food. And that's why he got to smooch his way to a promotion. He said that the office environment was pretty cliquey, and he didn't want to ostracize himself by eating special lunches. He didn't tell me because he thought at first that it would be a short-term thing, and then he said he didn't want to put me down and sound ungrateful, so he just kept pushing it back until I found out. He said he would have told me sooner or later, but I'm pissed. He did sometimes eat my lunch coming back from work, but oftentimes he would just throw it away or give it to the stray animals near the park outside of our home. But I feel like he's just saying that to make the situation sound better because he said it after he told me he never ate my lunches. Final update. Y'all, I was ready to make my decision, and I told him to tell me anything he was not telling me beforehand, and he told me something pretty deal-breaking. I mean, this is a man who couldn't tell me he didn't like my food, so a huge debt was too big to talk about. I mean, we weren't in the best situation, but yeah, he had some other issues, and I'm not dealing with that. He can go to a therapist to sort out whatever issues he has if he wants to. It's better for him anyway. It's a win-win to everyone in the comments. 1. People who told me he was a no-no win. Breakup. 2. People who told me he was a cray-cray win. Breakup. In the comments, Smart Quokka says, all he had to do was say he was eating the provided meals early on, and that would have been the end of it. I'm mad on OP's behalf. Wasted money, time, and effort for nothing. That's what I'm thinking. It would have been so easy to say, don't worry, they provide lunch. There's no need for you to get up early and to go to all the effort. Or even, it turns out the culture at this job is just that people eat cafeteria lunch together rather than packing a lunch. There's so many ways he could have addressed this without lying or even commenting on the food that she's making. Lying to his girlfriend, wasting a lot of food and money, and being super insensitive to his girlfriend's feelings. This dude sucks. I'm glad OP ditched him. And having his girlfriend get up extra early unnecessarily, all that lost sleep. Yes, this is what got me too. I'm getting out of bed at 5:30 a.m. to make you a nice lunch, and you're too awkward to tell me that you want to eat with the boys because the place is cliquey? Get the hell out of here. I just stand on everything that I said before. He just does not respect you. He respects his reputation at the workplace and fitting in with the clique more than he does about just being honest with you from the start. This is conflict avoidance to the max, dishonesty, and emotional immaturity, let's be honest. He's the whole package. And whatever else he's got going on, he needs to go sort out as well before ever getting back into a relationship. Like, his Behavior is completely unacceptable. Anyone would feel disrespected. Anyone would feel disgusted, wasting so much on someone that can't even give them the basic decency of honesty back. Good on you for choosing yourself and breaking up with him, OP. He deserved it. Our next post is by user ZestyClothes2, titled, "Am I the asshole for refusing to be a kidney donor for my brother? I, 32 female, am a savior sibling. Basically, I was made to be used as spare parts for my eldest brother, Drew, 37 male. I have another brother, Mark, who is 34, who was supposed to be the savior sibling, but due to health reasons, he was not a viable donor. They ignored him most of his life. Drew was 2 years old when he was diagnosed with brain cancer. It was devastating, and finding a bone marrow donor was not going well. After a few months, they decided to have a child to get the bone marrow, and that's where my second brother came in. As I said previously, he was not viable due to his health, which turned into my parents having a third child, me. I became the savior sibling, starting with my umbilical cord. Then bone marrow donations since I was a toddler. If you've seen My Sister's Keeper, it was a pretty similar situation, albeit in Spanish. I spent most of my early childhood just being exhausted. I couldn't go to kindergarten and early school with other children because from the donations, my health was affected. My diet was tailored to be at my best state for the next donation. Around the time Drew was 14, he was declared cancer-free. There was never any acknowledgement of me donating parts of my body since birth so that he could live. Only a big party and him being called a miracle by the whole family. Before, when he was sick, I didn't interact much with Drew. He was either at the hospital or in the only air-conditioned room with his own TV and the latest game console available. He never really tried to form a relationship with either me or our other brother. Healthy Drew was a nightmare. He treated me like his personal maid, bullied our other brother, constantly hit us, pushed us, insulted us. Think the most stereotypical bully, and he was pretty much that. Our parents didn't really care. He was the center of their world, and the rest of us an afterthought. Whatever he wanted, he got. Whatever the rest of us needed, we had to figure out how to make do. Mark pretty much took the role of raising me. He started working at 15 and using what little he made so that I could go on school field trips, have snacks, and he always got me a present for Christmas. That was my only present for many years. Our parents also didn't help with university, so we both made do with a local university. They were too busy paying for Drew to travel and party to even help with our books. Eventually, we both got hired overseas. I lived in the US for a few years, and now I live in Spain and work as a police officer. Mark lives in the Netherlands and is also in law enforcement. Our parents and Drew remain in South America. My parents call maybe once a year during my birthday. I had no contact with Drew for about a decade. Mark and I visit each other constantly, and I talk to him almost every day. This was our normal, and we all were very happy with it. Until about 3 weeks ago. I got a rare off-season call from my parents. They don't call for the holidays, so this meant an emergency. I answered, and my mother was crying since the moment I started the call. She told me that they were at the hospital after Drew fainted during one of his many trips. Turns out, all of his partying and vices caught up to him, and he's gone into renal failure. He's currently on dialysis, but my old hospital records were still with my parents, and it said that I was a match for him to be a kidney donor. My mum told me that I needed to be there in 5 days for the surgery. She didn't ask, she just told me, like when I was 4. And I cried that I didn't want to be poked and prodded, but she still told me to deal with it. I said no. Only no. She was stunned for only a minute or so before she started cursing me and telling me that this is what I was made for. I just asked her to say it louder now that I had her in my speaker so that my whole station could hear her. That was a lie, but I knew the idea of people hearing her would make her stop. She cussed me out and ended the call. From then on, I've received multiple messages, emails, and even written mail from relatives telling me how disappointed they are of me. Some cursing me, and I meant it in the literal sense, and a few threats, legal and otherwise. I just delete and throw them away since I'm not really concerned. The issue is, from what I've heard, Drew's getting worse really fast, and part of me does feel guilty. A friend of mine who did go through with a kidney donation knows what's going on and asked me if I could live knowing I let my brother die. I said yes, but at the same time, I know that's a lie. The more logical part of me constantly reminds me that I'm not responsible. He is from his bad decisions, but the emotional part that has been basically molded from years of being a spare parts child screams for me to book a ticket and to head back. So, in the interest of perspective, am I the asshole for refusing to donate to him? Edit to clear something up, surgery would not have been in 5 days I arrive. I wrote it to keep it short, but there's a lot of testing involved. 5 days is when the process, which is testing, health checks, etc., would begin. In the comments, Dawn Shakar says, "Not the asshole. 1,000 times not the asshole. You're feeling guilty for not helping your brother because you've been conditioned from birth to be his donor. But you are not his tool. You're a human being and belong to yourself. Even leaving aside your parents treating you as spare parts and not as their child, your older brother's treatment of you was cruel, selfish, and especially disgusting given that you had saved his life over and over. And now his condition is the result of his own choices and actions. You owe him nothing. You need to do 2 things. 1. Stand firm about not donating a kidney to your brother. 2. Start therapy to untangle the web of guilt and false responsibility that your parents enmeshed you in. And when your brother dies, don't blame yourself if you feel relieved instead of grieving. OP, don't donate that kidney. Even if your family threatens going no contact. It doesn't sound like Drew would be a good recipient based on his life choices. I really doubt he would care for his kidney, follow a strict renal diet, take all his immunosuppressant medication, wear a mask in public right after the surgery, and so on. I think it'd be a waste of a healthy kidney. Plus, there would be physical restrictions on the donor, such as no contact sports. That might preclude staying in law enforcement depending on your job. If he smokes, drinks, does drugs, they will not put him on the transplant list. That's why they need OP for a direct donation. In my opinion, Drew's now dealing with the consequences of his actions. If I was OP, I'd say, AMFYOYO? Adios, motherfucker, you're on your own. That's a new one. This is a post where OP is coming to get permission to say no to someone. And I'm gonna check this, and yeah, permission granted, OP, you're good. I don't blame you for not cutting your family off before because of how conditioned you are, and how you probably do want to hold on to hope that they are not as bad as they were in the past, and that maybe they love you, maybe there's a chance you can be a normal, functional family. But this is crazy. Your mum just straight up was like, yeah, organ donor. That's what I made you for. You're not a child. You're just a piece of meat. I need you to fly over here right now and donate a kidney. Yeah, we're cutting that thing out. It's not like you were using it anyway. Yeah, this pathetic drug addict that we call your brother, who is a human, and not you, by the way. Yeah, he needs it, and he's definitely not going to fuck this up and destroy a healthy kidney. Nah, he wouldn't do that. We love him and not you. But yeah, OP, no is a full sentence. No is a full answer, because if you were to ever go and do that, you probably would have to give up your career in law enforcement, and that would just tank your life even harder than it's already been tanked by these people. There's no reason for you to do that. Not the asshole. Don't do that. And now, onto the update. Hey everyone, I'm just doing a quick update to say that I've reiterated that I won't be returning to do any donations. This seriously got bigger than I thought, and I want to thank all the people that made me feel confident in my choice. You're right that even taking out the abuse, giving a kidney would be detrimental to my health and safety. It's pretty late where I am, so I won't do too many details. Nothing dramatic has happened either. I just wanted to let everyone know that there won't be any organ donations on my part. I also saw some health-related questions regarding my brother's cancer and the treatment that we were subjected to. When I have more time between work and life, I'll update in more detail. The only thing that I want to point out is I do not know all the details of his cancer. I was a small child when it happened, and after he healed, my parents didn't really interact with me beyond the bare minimum. We didn't talk about health matters. Mark actually is the only reason that I got all my vaccines on time, if that gives you any idea of the kind of care that I received after Drew healed. I left at 18 with only my important documents. I didn't take my health records. Some people might be curious about these things, but I just wanted to leave as fast as I could. And finally, I got a message about, well, CPS would have been involved. CPS is an American organization for the welfare of children in American soil. I was not born in the US, so I'm not a citizen. My English skills were a requirement for college, and I continued to learn since speaking multiple languages helps with my career prospects. America strikes again. What do you mean they don't have CPS in Colombia? Fix it! What do you mean we don't have CPS in Venezuela? We were just there! But yeah, good stuff, OP. That was a pretty concise update right there. I do not doubt that your parents did not give a single fuck about you in your childhood. You did not have to tell me twice. They literally said to your face that you were a spare parts human. I don't know if it gets any worse than that. I mean, obviously it does, but that's pretty bad, as far as neglect goes, at least. Thank you for saying no. Thank you for standing up for yourself and basically telling them to piss off. And I hope he suffers the consequences of his actions, because your brother sounds like he deserves it. Our next post is by user AgentSparkles88, and it's titled, "Am I the asshole here for telling my husband his friend can come to Thanksgiving, but I'm not dealing with his bullshit?" So my husband has this friend, let's call him Craig. The first time we invited Craig over for a holiday was Thanksgiving a few years ago. He said he wanted to wash his hands before dinner but didn't use the bathroom. Instead, he went to the kitchen and proceeded to complain about how the sink was full of dishes and why I hadn't cleaned them yet, despite the fact that I'd made an entire Thanksgiving meal. My husband said he was probably just joking and I shouldn't have taken it so personally. For Easter, my husband invited him again, and Craig offered to bring a pie. I told him that I was already planning on making 2 desserts, carrot cake and cheesecake stuffed strawberries, and since my husband and I were trying to lose weight, I didn't really want extra dessert floating around. So he offered to bring rolls instead. I joked that if he didn't bring King Hawaiian sweet rolls, then he wouldn't be allowed inside. So on Easter, I told him that dinner would be served at 5. 5 o'clock came, and no Craig. 5:30, still no Craig, but we decided to eat. 6, no Craig, and we move on to dessert. 6:30, we finished eating and decided to relax in the living room. 7, Craig finally shows up with his girlfriend, and I see he brought King Hawaiian butter rolls. At this point, I didn't really care, since I already ate dinner without a roll, but what really got me was that he brought the pie. So Craig goes to wash his hands and can't help but make a comment about the dishes in my sink. He then complains that my food is nowhere as good as his girlfriend's. Probably had something to do with the fact that the food was now cold. When he was ready to leave, I told him not to forget his pie. He mentioned that he didn't like sweets and so that we could keep it. Now Thanksgiving is coming again and my husband wants to invite him. I said fine, but I'm not dealing with his bullshit this time. The first condescending comment he makes, he can walk straight out, and if I have to slam the pie in his face to get him to take it, then I will. My husband is telling me that I'm taking everything out of context, but I think showing up 2 hours late and being rude to the host is pretty clear. Am I the asshole? In the comments, you're weirdly sensitive about the pie, but justified in being upset about his comments about your dishes and about your food, and the fact that he was so late. OP says, if it hadn't been for the other stuff, I probably wouldn't have minded as much, especially since he bought it at a restaurant that has the most artificial tasting chocolate pies that I've ever had. OP clarifies on if Craig's girlfriend was invited to Thanksgiving the first time. Had Craig been with his girlfriend for a while at the time? OP says, Craig asked if he could bring her, and we said yes. She was perfectly kind to us. They're actually engaged now, and my husband hasn't known him that long. They used to work together, and I know my husband and his work friends are rude and inappropriate with each other, and I told them that if he wants to act like that with his friends, I don't care, but I don't like people treating me like that. Another commenter asks, why does your husband keep inviting him? And if they're tight enough to spend all the holidays together, why hasn't he addressed this behavior? Not the asshole, your husband borders on it though. And OP says, to be fair, those are only 2 holidays in the past 4 years. He usually visits his family, but those 2 he happens to be in town. Not the asshole. You have a husband problem. Craig is obviously an asshole, but why is your husband okay with his friend being so rude and so nasty to his wife? Does your husband also treat you like this, or talk bad about you to Craig so that he feels comfortable enough to act this way? The first time a guest was ever rude to me in my own home would be the last time that they were inside it. Tell your hubby that he can go spend Thanksgiving with Craig and his girlfriend while you stay home alone. There will be no mess and no asshole making rude comments. OP replies, I've seen my husband around his friends, and they go all out with the mean comments towards each other, so I get that it's their friend dynamic. My husband says that Craig sees me as a friend, and that's why he's comfortable being rude to me, but he isn't actually trying to be a jerk. I told him that I'm not mean to my friends, and he said he'll tell Craig to be nicer, but that he just forgets that I'm not like his other friends. Another commenter says, ask your husband, what about Craig does he actually like? OP says, they used to work together, and I know Craig did have my husband's back in a situation where a higher-up was trying to get my husband fired over a mistake that was the higher-up's fault. I do appreciate him being there and defending my husband in that situation, but in my personal life, he's annoying. Why is Craig 2 hours late and then talking shit? There is no, oh, that's just how he is, our friend group is really mean. That's just the basic standard. Okay, then. In that case, OP, you can just fling shit back in his face and see how he reacts. Because I'm sure throwing it right back in his face when he dishes it out is going to go so well, and he's not going to start losing his shit and being like, why are you treating me like this? What did I even do? What's wrong with you? Because people like him often just blow up and get into gigantic arguments because you're kind of giving them permission to when they started it. In any case, you're not wrong for setting a clear line that he needs to show basic respect or he doesn't get to come. If your husband wants to hang out with him, he can do it away from you. You just need to set firm boundaries with this dickhead and let your husband deal with him. I don't blame you if you don't want him to come to your house for Thanksgiving if he's just going to repeat everything that he's done before. And now, on to the update. So since Thanksgiving was yesterday, I decided to update, but first I wanted to address a few things. 1. Craig did ask if he could bring his girlfriend, and we said yes because she's a very sweet person. I just forgot to mention that. 2. Why did I or my husband not call Craig out? I'm very non-confrontational, and my husband and his friends roast each other. That's just their dynamic. My friends and I borderline flirt with each other, so it's the exact opposite. So when Craig insulted me, it's because he likes me and he sees me as a friend. 3. A lot of people seem to think that my husband is terrible, and that's easy to say when this is the only thing you know about him. But let me assure you, I couldn't have asked for a better husband. He supported me for years while I was unemployed and didn't complain. He's taken care of me while I was sick or recovering from surgery. He defended me when his mother called me lazy. He likes to surprise me with presents or treats for no reason. He's more excited about my little victories than I am, and is always quick to remind me how amazing he thinks I am whenever I try to say something negative about myself. He's silly, and he makes me laugh. He's so amazing that I'm willing to put up with his lukewarm friends. 4. Several people have mentioned that I should go out to eat, and as a person who used to serve on Thanksgiving, that sounds terrible. Now for the update. As it turns out, my husband didn't invite Craig. After my initial response, he decided not to stress me out any more than I already was. He did invite some guys from work who had nowhere else to go, and I invited my uncle and cousin. Everyone was an hour late, But since the food was still hot and I was vibing to my music, I didn't mind much. The food was mostly good, and no one insulted me, even though the turkey was a bit dry. Don't worry, I know what I did wrong. And I had a good time gossiping with my cousin while the guys watched football. In the comments, OP on what she did wrong with the turkey being dry. Well, typically, I use a Reynolds bag to cook it in. I know it sounds crazy to cook a turkey in a plastic bag, but trust me, it works. It keeps the turkey moist, so you don't have to keep basting. I use the bag, but I heard that you should cut ventilation holes so the bag won't pop. I think I cut too many holes, or my holes were too big, which allowed too much moisture to escape. So next time, I'll just stick with 2 small ventilation holes. Being 2 hours late and complaining about the food would be enough for me to open the door and wave his ass right out of there. I'm actually wondering if OP and husband have issues with time, because the update says everyone invited to Thanksgiving were an hour late. It's possible they just live in Southern California. Everyone here is at least an hour late to everything. It's infuriating until you get used to it. Anyway guys, that's where I'm going to end today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!